They had an American airplane that was part of that. It was the P-40 Warhawk, but they couldn't build them fast enough. So North American built an airplane in 120 days. And coming in from the right, two pilots flying these amazing airplanes known as the P-51 Mustangs. Let's listen. Louis Horschel is flying lead. He's from upstate New York. On his wing from Switzerland, Ariel Luedi. And as we see these airplanes go by, they have wound up on everybody's top 10 list of the greatest aircraft of all time. When North American Aviation was asked by the British to build Curtiss P-40 Warhawks to help with the British war effort, the president of North American Aviation, Dutch Kindleberger, said, we don't want to build somebody else's airplane. And that 120-day claim that he would make to build a new airplane was a bold statement, but he had the rabbit to pull out of a hat, and it became this airframe. That was a formation barrel roll. In the lead, Louis Horschel, picking the right altitude, airspeed, and attitude to move himself and Ariel Luedi on his right wing through each and every maneuver safely. We'll see more formation flying, and we'll talk more about that. But suffice it to say, it is a very challenging skill to fly in formation, only feet from another airplane. Back to the story. Dutch Kindleberger said, we'll build you a new airplane, and they knew something that nobody else knew, and it was something that had been developed by the predecessor to NASA. NACA was what it was, the National Advisory Council on Committee on Aeronautics. A wing design called laminar flow. Doing a barrel roll the other direction. It takes an incredibly finely tuned set of skills to use the ailerons, the elevator, the rudder, and the throttle to maintain one positive G, just like we're standing on the ground here on the Earth, all the way through that maneuver, starting and stopping at the same altitude, airspeed, and heading. That's what these guys are doing. Now, Ariel Luedi's going to drop back behind and go into the slot formation, or the trail formation, very close. When these airplanes were rolled out, built initially for the British, the Royal Air Force, it had an Allison V12 engine in it, but that engine did not perform well enough at high altitude to keep up with the Spitfires and Hurricanes of the Royal Air Force as they fought off the German Air Force. The Hurricanes and Spitfires of the Royal Air Force, however, had a very, very good engine in it. It was designed by Rolls-Royce. It was known as the Merlin, a V12 liquid-cooled engine, a radiator in it, just like our cars have radiators in them. And some enterprising British engineers said, wait a minute, we like the airframe of the Mustang. It's great. It's stupendous. Why don't we put one of our motors on it? And so they did. They married up the airframe of the Mustang as we see it here with a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, and the Mustang as we know it was born. Those aircraft engines by Rolls-Royce were built one at a time, and they couldn't keep up with the need for production. So American mass production techniques took over, and over 56 Merlin-designed, Packard-built engines were built by Packard Motor Car Company of Detroit, Michigan. Some 15,600 Mustangs were built throughout the course of World War II. About 160 remain flying today. These two are P-51Ds. The D model Mustang was the most built and was able to fly at speeds over 400 miles per hour. Wingman Ariel Luedi lives in Switzerland. He comes over to the United States to fly his Mustang, known as Little Witch. He keeps it down in Florida at Stallion 51 down outside Orlando in Kissimmee, Florida. He's owned it for 10 years. In Switzerland, Ariel is part of a 3-ship formation aerobatic team flying a Pilatus P-7 turboprop, which is a military trainer similar to the ones now flown here in the United States as a primary trainer for the United States Air Force and the Marine Corps and the Navy. Head on. Get your cameras on this as they come over. I'm going to fade the music and let you listen to the sound of these Merlin engines. It's music. Ariel has also competed many years in solo aerobatics with his Booker Jungmeister and in Sukhoi Su-26 before moving into formation flying. Luedi Horschel was born and raised on a farm in western New York. He's been in love with aviation since his childhood. He grew up flying with his dad from a grass runway on the farm, and today he flies antique Waco biplanes and bush planes and float planes, but loves being able to bring the World War II fighters to the Airshow world. He's very honored to be also a part of the Navy Legacy Flight program, flying air shows in a Corsair, along with F-35 and F-18 fighters. The Mustang, as I said, winds up on everybody's top 10 list. In 1943, then Senator Harry Truman, later to become President of the United States, Senator Harry Truman's Senate War Investigating Committee said of the Mustang, it is the most aerodynamically perfect pursuit plane in existence. And that has been borne out. When they come into land and when they pass by again, you'll have an opportunity to see the radiator scoop located slightly more than halfway back on the fuselage where the air comes in to cool the engine. And the initial design of the Mustang had that intake butted up right against the fuselage. From the right, cameras ready for another photo pass with Mad Max and Little Witch, Luedi Horschel and Ariel Luedi. That radiator scoop on the original Mustang was butted right against the fuselage, and there were cooling problems because of turbulence around that intake. And so the designers at North American Aviation, they decided to separate the intake from the bottom of the fuselage with what is called a gutter, about 1 3/4 inch space between the top of the intake and the bottom of the fuselage. And that was 1940s technology, and some 30 years later, General Dynamics applied the same technology to an aircraft that became the Air Force's F-16 Fighting Falcon, flown by your United States Air Force Thunderbirds, and you can see the intake for the jet engine. There is a similar design right under the cockpit of the for the pilot is the same kind of gutter, so that technology from 1940 was applied to the F-16 Fighting Falcon. Pretty cool stuff. As they land, I hope you'll give a nice round of applause to Louis Horschel and Ariel Luedi, Mad Max and Little Witch. We want to say a great big thank you to the Air Force Association and the Langley Chapter of the Air and Space Forces Association for being a premier sponsor of today's air show and an enduring partner to Joint Base Langley-Eustis and Air Combat Command. The chapter's mission is to promote dominant U.S. air and space forces as the foundation of a strong national defense, to honor and support our JBLE airmen, guardians, and their families, and to remember and respect the enduring heritage of our air and space forces. You can stop by the chapter's booth at Show Center to learn more about how it fulfills its mission and how you can join the chapter and help educate and advocate and support our air and space forces here at Langley-Eustis. Get a free gift while you're at it. Just one of our great sponsors of the show today. Coming up in just a moment. As the aircraft clear the runway, you can see those radiator scoops. And then we look to the F-16 Fighting Falcon. Interestingly, that early 1970s competition for a new lightweight fighter for the Air Force had a competitor from the General Dynamics YF-16. It was the Northrop YF-17, and it lost the competition. And a lot of us thought that at that point, the YF-22 would be either sold for scrap or shoved in some dark corner of an obscure aviation museum for nobody to see ever.